Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me if you like when I do it good. Tell me if it feels right. Oh, 'cause you a banger, and you know it.
So basically, the SSL XEQ2 is the overall lead. Whenever you're recording background vocals, you want to kind of cut a lot on the low end so it won't clash with that beefy lead vocals. So that's a vocal tip. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my home studio. I'm Archie Beats and I am here to help. And today we're discussing my top 10 plugins for vocals. Finding the right plugins for your vocals can definitely be a task. But the good news is, as long as you're willing to stay in there, hang in there, and experiment with different plugins, free plugins, paid plugins, you will be okay. It's all about finding what works for your workflow. And with that being said, I know that there are tons and tons and tons of plugins that are available out there that are really great. But you know, some may work for one person and some may not work for the other person. It's all about what works for you and what are you comfortable with in your workflow. So today, guys, this is all about the plugins that I use for vocals. This is not an endorsement. These are actual plugins that I use all the time on vocals, female vocals, male vocals, rap vocals, singing vocals, ADR, and recording voiceovers. These plugins actually work. And boys and girls, keep in mind, although some of these plugins cost money, you can use your default stock plugins in Logic, FL Studio, Pro Tools. You can pretty much use, especially with EQs and reverb. Once you learn pretty much the basics of your plugins, such as EQs, dynamic processors, and like reverbs and delays, you can pretty much apply that basic foundation to any plugin, stock plugins, as I said, or paid plugins. So don't ever be intimidated by pricing. You can go to the free stuff and achieve some amazing sonic results. But before we get started, if you guys are interested in anything that you've seen in my home studio, be sure to click below in the description. I have everything listed in my home studio, also other gear that could possibly help you on your creative journey. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss another video. So boys and girls, I don't want to hold you up. Let's jump on the screen. Keep in mind, boys and girls, you can achieve everything that I'm doing today with free stock plugins, but if you want to purchase them, go for it. Go for it. Invest in it. It's fun to have a user interface that you want to work on. It's also inspiring to have a plugin that you feel comfortable using and it fits your workflow. That is so important when it comes to making music. It's not about, oh, this does something better than this. It's about how does it make you feel when you're using it? How does it make you feel when you're trying to get that certain sound? And it doesn't make you feel comfortable? Are you having fun when you're using that tool? That's what this is really about. Creativity, having fun, making great music.
I see, yeah, body, yeah, on me, yeah. Let's take it to the old school. Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, as you guys can see, here's the session. When I'm on that final stretch, I really go hard on organizing my sessions. You want to make sure you have session organization. It kind of helps your workflow a lot. So you want to make sure you're organizing your tracks, naming them, coloring them, whatever your workflow is. You want to make sure that you have some sort of organization. First thing first, you can't utilize these plugins unless you get a great recording. So the signal flow is extremely important. But my signal flow is my Neumann U87 going into my Apollo. I recorded some of my Apollo 8 Quad and also my Apollo Twin X. It goes into the Unison pre. For the leads, they're mainly Neve 1073, sorry about that. And for the background vocals, I actually used the Manley Voxbox in some, for some of the backgrounds, which was really cool. We really didn't use any compression until we recorded and printed it to tape. And the Unison, yes, I printed the Unison to tape. When you guys hear the term print to tape, that means that it was recorded using that plugin or that outboard gear. It's actually hard printed. You can't change it. It's absolute after it makes it to the session. So that's what that means. Let's start with the EQs, my top 10 10 plugins for vocals. My EQs are first. The first EQ, I didn't use it for this session because I have another favorite one that I just started using, and I'm going to get to that. But the first one is the Waves Q10, everything that I need in an EQ. And the other EQ that I'm explaining later is exactly the same thing. It's a little simpler as far as the user interface, but it pretty much does the same thing. As long as you know the three most important parts of the EQ, you can use your Logic EQ, stock EQ, your Cubase, stock EQs, your Ableton, FL Studio, as long as you learn the basics of it. And there are three important parts of the EQ that I really focus on, and that's the gain, the frequency, and the Q. The gain is actually the volume of the frequency that you're cranking up. So the gain is pretty much controlling the volume to that. The frequency is what you dial in. For example, it's 31. That means that's 31 hertz, and you can go target in on that specific frequency by picking it out. Now, what the Q does is the Q widens it up. Let me just give you guys an example of it. The Q is basically the parameter that widens up the actual frequency. If you want to attack more than one frequency but you can also use it to target in on a specific frequency, which is pretty useful, you know. The second EQ is the SSL Solid State Logic X EQ2. I love the sound of SSL, and I love that they got into this, into the plugin game. I'm really appreciating this plugin right now. I really love this. It's very simple user interface, UI. If you hold down your mouse on it, you can actually change the parameters. Very organized once you get the hang of it. And see, as I can do that, I can change my Q up. It's the same thing. It just works a different way, but it sounds amazing.
Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah. Tell me if you like when I do it good. Tell me if it feels right. Oh, 'cause you're a banger, and you know it.
So basically, the SSL XEQ2 is the overall lead. I use the SSL XEQ on all of my auxiliaries right now. And like I said, the other alternative is the Q10. You can get the solid state Logic SSL XEQ for $14.99 a month on Gobbler, the whole suite with the channel strips and the bus compressor, which I use the bus compressor a lot. And it just sounds great. All of that stuff below as well. So the next thing is the de-esser. A de-esser is definitely in the dynamic processor realm, but is very frequency attacking. It attacks a specific frequency. You're getting all that sibilance, those S's, and you want to make sure you pull those down, and you want to make sure you have a nice, clean recording. Not having all those S's harsh on your ears. So number 3 is the de-esser, and this is by Waves. You can purchase this by itself. Waves has extremely great sales throughout the year, and I actually buy plugins. I buy all of my plugins. That's how you keep the audio ecosystem going. When you use a compressor like this, the 1176, which is made from Universal Audio, with your attack, the farther you go up to 7, the attack is fast. And when you take it all the way down to 1, the attack is slow. This is important when it comes to compressors. And I use this because it just sounds great. It's not too harsh. You know, some people say the original 1176 is harsh, and while some of the other plugins aren't aggressive enough, but this is just exactly what I need, and it's a fantastic compressor. And as I stated, I use this on all of my songs, all of my vocals. The 1176 Blueface, this is the Rev A. And the next most important plugin, my top 10 plugin, is we still in compressor land. So it's the Teletronics LA2A from Universal Audio. Extremely awesome, straight to the point compressor. On the lead vocal, I already have the 1176, and on the lead aux, and it just give a nice glue on the overall vocal aux with this. So it's not gain staging because we didn't, it's not parallel compression because we didn't bust it over.
Yeah, body, yeah, on me, yeah.
So it's not parallel compression because we're not sending a signal and pretty much preserving the original signal. We're not doing that. We're really doing compression, going out, going into another compressor, and just gluing all together. So we didn't do any parallel compression, period, with this song because I just love the sound of these compressors. And especially for a modern day R&B song like this, you know, it preserves what you're going for when you have that particular sound. And it's also about what your ears are telling you. If your ears are telling you that this bounces right and it feels right, then stick with it, go with it. You know, you got it. This is pretty much what it's doing.
I see, yeah, body, yeah, on me, yeah. Let's take it to the old school. Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you guys hear how that sound all together? Sometimes things can sound weird when it's by itself, but when everything comes together and all the effects comes together, it sounds really awesome. And that's why I love the LA2A along with the 1176 right here. They just work so well together. And when I use it on the lead vocal and then go down to the auxiliary and then add the Teletronics LA2A from Universal Audio on the vocal aux, it just turns out just amazing. And it's pretty much cut and dry from there. The next most important plugin that is in every last one of my signal flow is Auto-Tune, Ontary's Auto-Tune. With Auto-Tune, it just gives it that effect that makes it blend well with this type of song and this type of track. For example, the funk songs that I do and the organic R&B records, I don't use too much Auto-Tune on those. Auto-Tune is a useful tool in my vocal mixing, my vocal recording, because guys, auto-tune is an instrument. It's a tool. It's not something that makes a person sound better, and that should never be the approach. When using it, it should be used as an instrument, used as a tool to help you just get a great recording. You know, overdoing it, you can have a really creative piece of work that's coming out, but just look at it as a tool and an instrument, and just, you'll be okay. You'll be okay with that. Auto-tune is pretty much cut and dry. It pretty much tunes your vocals and puts you in key. In my case, it's used to match the type of digital synthesizer kind of R&B, modern day R&B record. So I use it in that, and I use it as such. The next thing is, this is most important. If you are a vocal producer, this plugin is a lifesaver. This is the doubler from Waves. I used to record until about 3 years ago, guys. I always used the Wave doubler. But about 3 years ago, I used to have about 100 tracks with vocals and background vocals. And it was so funny when I go back and look at those sessions. I'm like, whoa, dude, you putting an orchestra in there. With doubler, it really just makes things a lot easier, especially when it's used correctly as a tool. And what doubler does is it keeps your original signal and it detunes some parts and it throws off some parts as far as the time and distance. And what's happened, it gives this cool vocal effect. So let's
down, do it good. Whoa, yeah.
So, and I turned the retune up a lot on the background vocals, but you guys hear how it sounds like it's two of them. That's one original vocal really filtered out to get that kind of, you know, clear some space up for the lead vocals. Whenever you're recording background vocals, you want to kind of cut a lot on the low end so it won't clash with that beefy lead vocal. So that's a vocal tip, man. You just cut a lot of the lower end out of the harmonies and it gives your lead vocals time to shine and the space to shine. So that's just one vocal, but because we have it filtered out in a doubler and we also have the doubler effect right here, it just sounds great. It sounds great. Now, as far as the effects, this is where the effects truly shine, going into the sub chorus. And as you guys can see, like I said, the organization, I have my marker stamps. Let's go into the sub chorus, the sub hook, to show you guys like the reverb and the delay so you guys can hear.
Body, yeah, on me, yeah. Let's take it to the old school. Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me if you like when I do it good. Tell me if it feels right. Oh, 'cause you're right.
So basically how I do my reverb is once I pretty much tally up everything as far as the vocal backgrounds, vocal leads, verse lead, hook background, hook lead, on the actual auxiliary sends, I send and bus over a signal to the actual effects. I do separate for reverb and separate for delays. My top reverb is this freaking Dream Verb right here from Universal Audio. Once again, these plugins can be pretty expensive, but also you can do the same thing and achieve it with free plugins and stock plugins, because once you understand reflections, the shape of the room, the material of the room, the reverberation, the RT60, what happens in the process before the reverb hits and the reverb tails, all of it. Once you guys learn the concept of that, you can achieve the sound that you want. It's not that difficult. It's just about spending time and finding, you know, and not even finding, but understanding how these plugins work, and you learning all the different parameters, the positions, the early, the late hits. It just dive into it and just work and work and work and work and learn and learn and learn, and you guys can get the same effect. I like this because I just like having control over my reverb all the way down to the material that the sound is hitting, all the way down to the distance, how far it's traveling, when it's going to come back, how it's going to hit over to the left, and also the frequency. I like to EQ, and I also like to tune my reverb in many cases, especially with R&B and modern day records. You know, it's just my preference. So Universal Audio Dream Verb does exactly what it says.
Tell me if you like when I put it down.
Very provocative right there. It's extremely provocative and extremely, it's shining right there. I have it turned up.
Tell me if you like when I put it down. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me if you like when I do it good. Tell me if it feels right. Oh,
So, although I wanted it to really shine right there, so I cranked the reverb up. Let's get over to the delays. As you guys can hear in the verse.
banger, baby, you know you a freak, yeah, yeah. And you the bomb when you biting on them sheets, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see, yeah, body, yeah, on me, yeah. I'ma drive it like an old school, yeah, yeah. Do 100 on your road, yeah. Even see a cop take it slow, yeah.
Now, I would have never discovered the delay, and I discovered it from Phil Tan. Shout out to Phil Tan, amazing engineer. When he did Diamonds for Rihanna, and he was explaining how he used Echo Boy, I immediately took out my card, because I was using slap delays, and I had like 5 different types of delays and echoes that I use, but this has been the only one that I use. So shout out to Phil Tan for using it on Rihanna, and then explaining why he used it and showing me the concept of why he used it. It was a video online or something like that, and I purchased it instantly. Now, the reason why I like Echo Boy is Echo Boy gives me not only control over the delay, but I have the tempo, ping pong effect, dual echo, and then here's the crazy part, saturation and of the actual style. I can change from telephone to AM radio to shortwave, and it can be digital sounds, transmitter sounds, and the defaults. I always start with default, because default it gives me a blank canvas, and I can just go to work, and depending on how I have my session set up and the actual sound I'm going for, I have these are the most important parameters. To have this with a delay is just extremely important. And it's a simple UI, simple user interface, but at the same time, it is cool looking. You got that vintage kind of like Moog wood on it, which is cool, man. It's really cool. But remember, you can do the same thing with all of your stock plugins, from Pro Tools to Logic to Ableton to Studio One. The default stock plugins you can do once you understand, like I said, the concept, you are good to go. So Echo Boy is my go-to delay. And the last plugin, and this one's going to shock y'all, when it comes to my effects, I also use a stereo spread imager for effects like reverbs and in some cases delays, and it sounds really good. It gives the plugins dimension. It gives the effects dimension. It makes the reverb seem bigger than what it really is. And even though reverb focuses in on the size of the room, the material of the room what material the room is made out of, this gives me the ability to make it bigger. And I just love the fact that I can do that with the stereo widener, and I can do the mid side, which that's what I did for the sub chorus, the hook right here. I call it sub chorus.
Tell me if you like when I put it down.
It's really wide.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me if
Extremely wide, and extremely just sounds amazing. These are my top 10 vocal plugins. It's simple video, straight to the point. And today I'm giving an example of these plugins with a song that I produced, played all the instruments, I recorded it, I mixed it, and I'm pretty much dialing back the mix because I'm showing you guys the process. But it's me singing, I wrote it, and I'm genetically attached to it. So with me being genetically attached to the song, because it's my song, I can give you guys a better explanation for why I use something as a creator, and at the same time give you guys a slightly technical perspective of it. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. These plugins are pretty much the plugins that I use every single day on all of my records and all of my whatever film I'm working on. I'm using these plugins. They are my go-to plugins. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss another video. And also don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Archie Beats, and that's with a Z. Don't forget to be great and create. This is your boy Archie Beats, and I'm signing off.
Archie Beat on the beat. Yeah.